Good afternoon, friends. I'm Pam Rowley, El Paso District Superintendent. You may pull out the nominations report that is in the pre-conference supplement, page 11. That's the pre-conference supplement S11. The nominations team has been intentional and prayerful in this year's work and in this challenging season of time with many transitions and changes. After the process of disaffiliation and withdrawal of members and clergies, we faithfully as a team considered the best leaders, clergy, and lay people to carry on the good work that has been accomplished in the New Mexico Conference over many decades. We are and were thoughtful in our discernment. We contacted individuals who have been considered for various roles on committees and boards, and we thanked those who have faithfully served and who are now at the closure of their current term. We looked at the requirements of particular boards and committees in the Book of Discipline and in our standing rules. We looked at representation that would be inclusive of our current 3 districts, of gender, diversity, and age, trying our very best to include youth and young people. We looked at diversity and ethnicity and urban and metro representation. Some committees require 1/3 clergy, 1/3 lay women, and 1/3 lay men. Where we were not currently in compliance, we made sure to become so. One example of this is on the committee, the Conference Commission on the Status and Role of Women. And there were 3 very surprised lay men who received a call. And yes, we are now in compliance. Additionally, the conference ministry team is working on reimagining structure and has suspended for a time the E-teams. You will not see the E-teams listed in this nominations report. Because of disaffiliation and other transitions in the past year, the Nominations Committee asked several individuals to stay on a bit longer in their respective roles and posts. You will notice an asterisk next to several names of those who have served their term but are remaining on the committee or board in an advisory training position and capacity. We are grateful for these individuals who will continue 1 more year to assist in building stronger teams and helping the conference during this time of transition. New members of the committees and boards are listed in bold italics. Please take notice of those new additions. Clergy members are identified by a C notation, while lay members are identified with an L. Women are notated with a W and men with an M. For example, a female clergy person is identified as CW. A lay male is identified as LM. Retired clergy are identified with RET. Young adult members by YA. In some circumstances, members who remain to be determined are marked TBD and will be included in the final membership list published in the 2024 New Mexico Conference Journal. There are also a few corrections and edits. If you happen to see some that we have not caught, please write them on a piece of paper and give them to Rosalie Johnston, our General Secretary. You will find several openings, but we really filled the committees and boards pretty fully. I draw your attention to S12 and the conference ministry team, line 6, Page S12. Because we are trying to be more inclusive, we added an at-large member to the conference ministry team. And on line 6, you will see Amy Wilson-Feltz, a clergy woman. Also on line 7 of the same team, conference ministry team, you will see a TBD, to be announced or determined, and that is a spot that the Conference Board of Ordained Ministry chair will fill once that chair is elected. Under the Board of Ordained Ministry, on line 34, we need to remove a name, but it's for a very good reason. We will, on line 34, remove Jared Secret because he has made a decision to continue in the candidacy process toward provisional elder. In his place, please write the name Joe McDonald. And down below where Joe McDonald's name is, we hope to place Blaine Wimberly as the Albuquerque chair of the DCOM. On S16, under the Conference Board of Higher Education, you will see 4 slots available to be determined, lines 34 through 38. These will be Wesley Foundation Board reps. Those names will be supplied at a later date, and we are very thrilled about the chairship and Josh Curry helping to shape further this Conference Board of Higher Education. On S17, line 13, the TBD will be 2 names, 1 additional name from a Desert Southwest representative for Four Corners Ministry and a Mountain Sky representative. Those 2 conferences have representatives at Four Corners Ministry. Also on S17, line 36, please add to the Conference Commission on the Status and Role of Women, Rachel Minar. Rachel Minar is a lay woman. Her last name is spelled M-I-N-A-A-R. And there you will notice in bold our 3 new representatives, John Milholland, Steve Henderson, and Bill Wood. And we were so grateful for their response to COSRO. I think that that takes care of all of those edits.
Pam,
Yes,
we need to call for jurisdictional pool nominations.
that's a different thing.
Okay,
Yes.
good.
You've heard the nominations report. It's been before you. You've heard the changes or those things yet to be supplied. Just to remind me of the process, this is before you, but the recommendation to approve this will be on Friday.
Correct, Friday morning.
Okay. So are there any questions that either you want to ask from the floor, or you can catch Pam between now and Friday if you have further questions about nominations? I think that completes the report for now. Thank you, Pam. Joe Whitley, pastor of Asbury in Albuquerque, is the chair of our conference benefits and benefits, pension, health, and I ought to know this by now. I'm chair of Westpath Board of Directors, Conference Board of Pensions and Health Benefits. So, Joe, we look forward to your report. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Bishop, members of the Cabinet, and to all of you, my brothers and sisters in Christ. The report of the New Mexico Conference Board of Pensions and Health Benefits begins on page 28. I just need about an hour of your time. We're going to go over it line by line. No, seriously, that's where the report begins. The resolutions relating to the rental housing allowances, which I'm going to put forward in a moment, are on pages 78 and 79 of the journal. There are a few important things in the report that truly deserve highlighting. And let me ask you, do you love your pastors? Their family members? Yeah. Do you love all of our retirees who have faithfully served the church and now enjoying their years in retirement? Do you love them too? Yeah, how about the people that are serving churches in our annual conference, that are lay people that are participating in all of our health and benefit plans? And do you love them as well? Well, I tell you, so does the board. So does the board. And you're going to find that to be true as I share with you some of these great things. And frankly, to begin, all credit to God. God is so good to us. Can I get an amen to that? Yeah, for sure. God is so good. Board of Pensions and Health recognizes the financial challenges that are facing many of our churches, and to help by providing direct relief and support to your faith communities. 1 month, each financial quarter of this year, all churches are being granted a holiday from the health and insurance premiums that you would otherwise pay. Yeah, this means that your church's premium for the month of March has been paid, and the premiums for June and September and December will be paid from the Board of Pension and Health's assets. Health, all right on. All credit to God. Healthcare costs for our clergy and their families and for the participating lay employees continue to rise. It's a fact. But our providers continue to offer a number of plans for health and vision and dental that provide flexibility of choice to all of these plan participants. Details on all the plans, by the way, are available through our conference benefits officer, Anna. They're on the WestPath Benefits website. I encourage you, if you have any questions about those, to either see Anna or talk to Andy Soroka, who's here from WestPath, or check out the website. Yes, healthcare costs continue to rise, but we're helping churches reduce these costs, yes, for sure. And the Board of Pension and Health Benefits recognizes the financial challenges facing many of our clergy as well. In this latest action, which just occurred yesterday, I'm delighted to announce that the board has created a new wholeness grant, which is designed to help improve recipients' mental and emotional health through improved financial security. Upon application, the said grant will award money to clergy persons currently serving full-time under appointment in the New Mexico Conference and to our district superintendents. At our next meeting, which we traditionally hold in September, we're going to again discuss our efforts to improve the mental and the emotional health through financial security by considering expanding this grant to include clergy who are serving under part-time appointments as well. We want to try to get everybody some relief and provide the relief in mind and spirit that comes with some financial help. We're delighted to again recommend at this annual conference through our report that the past service rate, or what we call a PSR, be increased to $758 for 2025. This represents a 2% increase. We try to do that annually. And imagine this, we're providing for our retirees who had years of service prior to 1982. And so each time we increase the PSR, it's an increase for all of those clergy who served prior to 1982. We have 4 retirement plans in effect. We are about to add a 5th Compass, and I'm sure somebody besides me is going to talk about that, and I appreciate it. Costs have risen, indeed, with Medicare and supplemental medical insurance costs. That significantly has increased for our retired clergy. Last year, we gave a significant boost. Again, I represent to you, our retired clergy. This year, at our next meeting, we're going to consider whether we can continue to increase the amount of the HRA payment, just as we did last year. We'll do our very best. These discussions reflect the board's continuing attempts to care for those who have faithfully cared for you and for your kids and your churches. With you, I know that we all lift up and honor those clergy who are retiring this year. Because the board does long-term planning and makes decisions in accordance with those long-term plans, thereby doing all that we can to minimize risks, make sure that those risks are never disproportionately shifted, we're delighted that our clergy can retire with financial security. Texas Methodist Foundation and WestPath manage and steward the funds that relate to all of the New Mexico Annual Conference retirement and health benefits. For years, we have worked and will continue to work with them to ensure that we never fail in our fiduciary obligations to any clergy or their families, or to widows or widowers, or to the participating lay employees. Andy Soroka, as I mentioned, of WestPath is here. Help answer any questions you have. The most recent audit of all of our funds managed by TMF and WestPath, respectively, are available on request of our conference benefits officer. As I close, I have to mention again, as I do each year, that the board has grants available to provide for unforeseen medical emergencies, to encourage wholeness and total well-being for both active and retired clergy, their family members, and those participating lay employees. Wellness grants totaling over $65,800 and medical grants totaling over $29,000 were awarded last year. We're continuing to do it every time we get a request. Please be sure to read about all these terrific benefits by reading our report or by visiting the conference website. I thank the members of the Board of Pensions and Health for their tireless work that profoundly impacts in many positive ways the lives of the people that I have mentioned. I also lift up to you the excellent work of our conference benefits officer, Anna Marshall, Melissa Thacker, who serves our local churches in a variety of ways to assist them with pension and health administration, Griselda Sandoval, who is, of course, our conference treasurer, with whom we work closely and who does a terrific job on everyone's behalf. I ask that the members of the board who are present please rise so we can recognize you. Anna, Griselda, Melissa, please stand so we can recognize you for your work. And all those who are coming onto the board, stand up so we can see you too. Cassandra, Gorton, Janet. Two folks are rolling off. We are very grateful for their service. Reverend Dave Okerberg is one of our retiree liaisons, and Reverend Janet Norton. But we are adding some folks, and we'd sure like to visit with you. Be sure to come back to the table at some point. Those of you who are surprised to find your name now on the board, it's the best board. Everybody that's served on it knows it's the best board, right? Yeah, amen. Yeah, so anyway, Bishop, as I mentioned, the resolutions regarding rental housing allowances for active, retired, or disabled clergy persons of the New Mexico Conference are found on pages 78 and 79 of the pre-conference journal. They're before this annual conference, and I move their adoption.
So this entire report is before us. It comes from a committee and needs no second. This report would not only be the information that you receive, but making some decisions about housing allowance and past servant rates and the other specifics that Joe has mentioned. Are we ready to vote? If you would support this recommendation, would you raise your hands? And those opposed? And it's been approved. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you all.
Ross Whitaker, the Superintendent of the Albuquerque District, is going to present the realignment resolution.
Thank you, Bishop. Ross Whitaker, Albuquerque District Superintendent. You will find on the journal, page 22, the resolution on district realignment. With the disaffiliation of churches last year, we found ourselves in a place where there are just a few churches left in the Clovis district. And so we still currently have 3 districts. However, we have 2 district superintendents. The Book of Discipline requires that this body change the number, or is the body that changes the number of district superintendents, and then the bishop sets the boundaries of those district superintendents. And so this resolution on district realignment is to get us to the point where instead of having 3 districts covered by 2 district superintendents, we have 2 districts covered by 2 district superintendents. And it allows for, this time next year, the boundaries of the 2 districts to be set at that point. So the resolution is before you.
So this comes as a recommendation from the cabinet, as I recall.
From Conference Ministries.
Conference Ministries, that's true. Cabinet discussed it too. So this, as Ross has stated, it's the annual conference that sets the number of districts. And then it's the cabinet that determines the boundaries and then brings those before the annual conference for approval. And that's a consultative process that includes leadership from those districts. This resolution is properly before us. Are there any questions? Are we ready to vote? Those who would support this resolution, please raise your hands. And those opposed, and it is approved.
Thank you, Bishop.
Thank you, Ross. New Mexico is well represented at General Conference. If you had a chance to watch online, you got to see Susan pretty frequently, as well as from time to time in the background, various members of the delegation. And also, there were other visitors from New Mexico that came along. Allie Newsom was there to record some of the work of our delegates. And so now we're going to receive the report that comes from the delegate members. And Pam, I think you're going to lead us off. So.
Hello again. It is a pleasure to come before you today as the elected delegation of the New Mexico Conference for the postponed 2020 General Conference held April 23rd through May 3rd of 2024 in Charlotte, North Carolina. It was a long journey to get there after several postponements due to the pandemic and related challenges. This delegation was actually elected at our annual conference of 2018. We began working together that summer in anticipation of a special call general conference, which occurred in 2019 in St. Louis, Missouri. Our delegation at that time included 4 others and reserve delegates who are no longer with us through death, withdrawal from the United Methodist Church, and transfer to another conference. This general conference was historic in many respects. Bishop Tracy Malone became the first Black female president of the Council of Bishops on April 30th, 2024. Bishop David Wilson, resident bishop of the Great Plains Conference of our own South Central jurisdiction, became the first Native American bishop to preside at the General Conference. Bishop Hector Burgos Nunez became the first bishop from the island of Puerto Rico to preside over a plenary, and Bishop Carlo Rapinet became the first Filipino-American bishop to preside over the General Conference. Bishop Karen Oliveto became the first openly gay bishop to preside over the General Conference on May 3rd, 2024. The Reverend Elise Fulbright became the first person of color to be elected Secretary Designate of the General Conference on May 1st. This afternoon, the delegates of our General Conference will share some information with you. Our delegation includes Susan Brumbaugh as our lead lay delegate, and Dan Salzwiedel also as a lay delegate, myself and Eddie Rivera as your clergy delegates. We will also hold a question and answer session in room 149, which is right through this door, exiting where the exit sign is. Turn left, and then an immediate left into the classroom that is available there, room 149 to 150. That Q&A session will be directly following this business session whenever we are completed today. We will try our very best to answer your questions, and I encourage you right now to write those down as we go along through our report. Each one of us, as I said, from the delegation will be reporting on particular items of importance, and I am starting with regionalization. We have heard about worldwide regionalization in these past months. The legislation proposes the formation of regional conferences. The Standing Committee on Central Conference Matters, the Connectional Table, and the Christmas Covenant Team worked together to submit this legislation. The Christmas Covenant Team was a grassroots group of individuals from central conferences who saw regionalization as the best way to promote unity in the church. Currently, there are 8 central conferences, including Africa, Central and Southern Europe, Congo, Germany, North Europe, Philippines, and West Africa. The central conferences would be renamed regional conferences, and a new regional conference will be created in the United States. Since the forming of the United Methodist Church, central conferences have been empowered to adapt specific sections of the Book of Discipline to optimize the United Methodist mission. With the passage of regionalization, the United States could do the same. Here are some things to consider about worldwide regionalization. Each regional conference will have authority to maximize the effectiveness of their mission, ministry, and context by adapting portions of the Book of Discipline specific to them. Regionalization will allow the publishing of a regional hymnal and ritual of worship that is contextual. Regionalization will recognize the annual conference as the basic body to determine all matters to the character and conference relations of its clergy members. Regionalization does not eliminate the jurisdictions. There is currently a study committee that is looking into this particular item. Regionalization will allow gifts and resources of every region to be best employed in the work of the United Methodist Church. All regions will be an integral part of our global connection. With regionalization, legislation that is particular to the United States will now be addressed at a U.S. regional conference rather than being a significant focus of the General Conference. One thing that comes to mind in this regard is WestPath pensions and benefits, which apply only to the United States. With the formation of regional conferences, General Conference can focus more fully on the mission and ministry of our worldwide denomination. It is very important to note that some parts of the Book of Discipline cannot be adapted or changed, parts 1 through 4, such as our Constitution, our doctrinal standards, our theological tasks, Christian ministry, and our social principles. The General Conference body voted by 78% to pass this legislation with a vote of 586 to 164 in favor of an amendment of our denomination's constitution. There was some concern that of the 111 delegates who were unable to get visas to attend General Conference were from the continent of Africa. What difference would that have made if they were present and seated? The positive votes for regionalization would have still carried the needed 2/3 margin had all of these absent voted in opposition to regionalization. The incoming Council of Bishops President, Bishop Tracy Smith Malone, who presided during the session that took up the regionalization amendment, said this at a press conference directly after the vote. Regionalization would enable the church to be contextual in ministry while remaining connected around the mission of the church and the essentials of our faith. It would enable the church to honor who we are as a worldwide denomination. The first consent calendar at the General Conference, which included the non-constitutional parts of regionalization legislation, passed by a vote of 646 to 73. Our very own Susan Brumbaugh presented the consent calendar every day, And Susan shared with the General Conference body that day something that we would like you to hear directly from her.
So what I said, and it was kind of off the cuff at the moment, I said, when this General Conference is over, if anybody comes up to you and says, we didn't do anything at this General Conference, you can tell them, we just did. And do I just keep going? Okay, so I'm gonna be talking with you about the constitutional amendments. And so Pam talked about one of them related to regionalization. The General Conference actually passed 4 constitutional amendments. And to explain that a little bit, and you may have heard this analogy before, but you know how the United States has 3 branches of government: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. The United Methodist Church has the same. The executives are the bishops, but there's no president, at least now. Are you gonna run? Okay, yeah. And we have the Judicial Council, which is the judicial body, and we have the General Conference, which is the legislative body, and it meets every 4 years. In the Book of Discipline, we have a constitution, much like the United States has a constitution. And you may recall, there aren't a lot of constitutional amendments that happen in the United States. That process is very, very difficult to get anything passed. So in the United Methodist Church, the bar is higher for constitutional amendments. And part of the reason for that is that, kind of like the United States, if something's in the Constitution, the states can't do something different. And the same is true for the United Methodist Church, that if something's in the Constitution, and Pam just talked about that, it can't be modified or regionalized in any way. So that bar is high, and it takes a 2/3 vote of the General Conference to pass a piece of legislation. But then there's another bar, which is that it has to be ratified in all the annual conferences. Now in the United States, each state takes a vote, and then all 50 states have to ratify. It's a little bit different in the United Methodist Church, that annual conferences will take votes. So next year, this body will take a vote on these 4 amendments. And what they do is they take all of those individual votes and they add them up and look at the total, and it is 2/3 of the aggregate individual votes. So it's not that we're gonna take a vote here and then New Mexico Annual Conference supports the amendments. That's not how it works. But it is important because you will get a vote through that process. It's important to know that when that piece of legislation comes before you, you can't make amendments to it. It's an up or down vote. You can certainly discuss it, but you wouldn't be able to make changes to it. And then after all those votes are taken, and it will take all the way through 2026, whatever passes, whatever gets 2/3 of the, what did I just say? The aggregate vote, those will then become part of our Constitution. So there are 4. There's the one on regionalization. There's one that is changing something in the Constitution around racial justice. And we already have language around racial justice, but this amendment makes the language a lot stronger, clearer, more actionable. And so you'll hear some rationales for them, but that will be one that you can look at. Another is related to protected classes of individuals who can't be discriminated against within the United Methodist Church. And right now, that list does not include gender. And 4 years ago, there was a constitutional amendment to add gender, and it failed for, I think, reasons of confusion. But that will be back before us. In addition to adding gender, it adds ability, so that physical disability, mental disability could not prevent you from participating fully in the life of the church. And then the last one is a little bit more esoteric, I think, and that looks at the eligibility of clergy members to vote for General Conference delegates. And they were proposing to change the educational requirements such that clergy would have to have gotten their degrees from a seminary that is approved by the University Senate and is formally affiliated with the United Methodist Church. So it reduces the number of seminaries that would count for who can vote. So that is the process. Eddie's going to talk a little bit about timeline, but if you have questions about that, I look forward to hearing them in the other room.
Well, I'm the comedic part of this. First of all, thank you very much. I appreciate what Susan just said. I want you to know, first of all, as a point of privilege, what a privilege it was to be able to represent you for the General Conference, the Jurisdictional Conference 2019, as opposed to this conference, where the landscape was quite a bit different. It was really rather harmonious, and a lot of things were accomplished. But thank you for the opportunity and the privilege to serve on your behalf here. Now, we've been given the constitutional framework, and we've been talked about the mechanics and a little bit of the action on the overview of the process itself. We're going to review just a little bit about what was done. Now, first of all, I drew the short straw. I got the feeling in this presentation. I'm going to feature 3 areas that were done, and we're going to do things more specifically or respond to it, as Reverend Pam talked about in that Q&A session. But I want you to know I love you all. I love you all, and stoning is no longer permitted of the speaker. As long as we got that straight, Reverend Joe. All right. Again, I'm going to focus on 3 things, but there's a lot to unpack here. And for our time permitted here, that's all we're going to do. And we'll try to address in the Q&A whatever questions you might have. First of all, let's talk a little bit about the budget. These are featured points now. It's not in great detail, but the budget that was approved for this quadrennium was 42% less. Now, obviously, there are lesser revenues, a reduction in staff. All those things had to take place, and we're part of that. This is going to have some significant trickle-down effect on the conferences, of course, and the apportionments. And of course, that should have an effect on the local church eventually, too, as we see that process through and milk the entire thing all the way through. Notably, the Episcopacy Committee took a hit financially. The number of bishops that are approved now dropped from 39 to 32, and I believe that'll be taken care of through retirement, Bishop, correct? Retirements, for the most part. That reduction in bishops and of course some reorganization. And of course, one feature point of this for the general agencies that we really don't have any pertinent direct effect with is that in the general agencies now, they are afforded the ability and the opportunity to fundraise independently of the appropriation that they get, which was much less than before. That being said, point number 2, the compass plan or the retirement plan. Now, there's some attributes here that are kind of important for you to realize as when you go back to your own churches, but there's a lot more specific information. This is a big thing that happened for the church itself. First of all, it starts effective January 26th. It's a transitional plan from defined benefit to defined contribution. That's an important quality. Details are filmed later. It requires the churches to give $150 up front per clergyman on a monthly basis or based on the salary, and then 3% of their salary. Those 2 things are required. Clergy are going to have, because it is a defined contribution plan, the opportunity to add a contribution 1 to 1, 2, 3, or perhaps 4%. Now that's a good thing. That's really a good thing, and it's really a good plan. Those things are done on there's a periodic time where you have to declare those things as a matter of the process too. The church is going to have to match anything that the clergy adds to that figure too. That's the compass plan. It provides more autonomy, obviously, and a little more flexibility and control of the retirement plan. Really a good one. The last featured area is the social principles. Now, you know, we were given this. Was published. It's, for the most part, it's correct. This is revised social principles. It was a final draft. For the most part, it's simply a simpler document. It reduced and redacted quite a bit of language, and really is more permissive. And that's what the real takeaway of all this is. The Book of Discipline, as a matter of fact, and the social principles are not church law by definition, but they reflect from the General Conference kind of a theological foundation that's in keeping with the United Methodist traditions. Now, I'm going to take some editorial license with this. The way I understand this is it's really kind of a snapshot in time. Things change, obviously, and what happens in your culture, going back to what Reverend Pam was talking about, regionalization, that plays a role in this too. Things are different in Africa than they are right here, obviously, in terms of cultural and societal requirements. It's kind of like a social playbook, if you will, for both individuals as in the Methodist tradition as well as the church itself. In this part of the book, in the discipline, it was cut pretty significantly, that part of it anyway, and there were quite a number of notable things that were addressed during the course of the area. It touched a wide variety of social areas, and really too many to mention in this setting. In some sections, as was alluded to in a couple of areas, because it is more permissive now, it really provides two things. The takeaways, it's more permissive. It allows the church to make a decision, particularly about the marriage issue, and it allows the pastor to make a decision. That's permissive, but still retaining a connectional element for the church itself. So we are more inclusive, and we got a good dose of that. It does represent a path of individual and church behavior, and again, I want to emphasize the harmony of this session, this General Conference, as opposed to 2019, was significant. The attitude and the landscape, social landscape, were significant. I'm privileged to have been a part of that, and I thank you for the opportunity. Now, Eddie's going to take you through an overview of what the effective dates are.
Bishop and members of the New Mexico Conference, just a point of privilege is to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to be part of this wonderful team, and it was just an amazing experience to be together in this General Conference that happened in April and May. So my task today is to give you the effective dates of all of the legislation that was passed. Now, in other years, after a General Conference and all the legislation passed, it typically goes into effect January 1st of the following year. But this is a different General Conference, so I'm going to give you about 5 or 6, maybe more, effective dates on all the legislation, most of the legislation passed. I'm going to start with this one. Immediately after its adoption, the removal of ban on ordination of LGBTQI+ people came into effect. Just came into effect immediately after its adoption. Now, immediately after the close of the General Conference, the following items came into effect. The creation of a U.S. regional committee to begin preparing the work of regionalization, the enabling of an interim U.S. legislative committee, the removal of ban on same-sex weddings, the changes on chargeable offenses by returning the wording on the first chargeable offense to its pre-2004 version, and the removal of funding limitations concerning LGBTQ+ ministries and advocacy. Now, this is too much to write down, so we will be posting all of these effective dates in the New Mexico website. I'm just beginning. Effective September 1st, 2024, 2 additional bishops in Africa. So 1 additional bishop will be elected at each of the upcoming sessions of the Africa and Congo Central conferences. And then for the jurisdictional conferences, there will be then 32 bishops that will take over or be part of the Episcopal ministry of our denomination. There will not be any elections in any of the jurisdictions. And so the number of bishops will be 32, and that will be ratified, or that will happen effective September 1st, 2024. Effective January 1st, 2025. In the United States, legislation adopted by the General Conference goes into effect on this day, January 1st, the following: the social principles, revised social principles, the approved budget for the denomination, the authorization of deacons to officiate the sacraments. You have to hear that one. The General Conference authorized ordained deacons to officiate the sacrament of Holy Communion and the sacrament of baptism. Also effective on January 1st, 2025, will be the Young People's Ministries, will become the Young People's Connectional Network. Also effective on that day, the departure of 4 Eurasian conferences, as they will become an autonomous Methodist denomination. This was stated by their bishop, Bishop Edward Kigi. Is that? Yeah. And so that will happen effective January 1st, 2025. Now, effective January 1st, 2026, legislation regarding central conferences, according to the Book of Discipline, in any central conference using a language other than English, the legislation that was passed at General Conference will take about 18 months for it to be made effective. And so it does not take effect until that Central Conference convenes and publishes their decisions in their own languages. And that's why it takes effect that long, January 1st, 2026. We also understand the West Path New Retirement Plan goes into effect January 1st, 2026. If I am mistaken, please. Okay, thank you. Good. Effective spring of 2026. This is the last one. No, 2 more. The constitutional amendments in need of ratification, which was already explained by Susan, those paragraphs will, after ratification, the Council of Bishops will be expected to make an announcement in the spring of 2026. Is this correct? Okay, good. And so by then, all the voting will be counted, and then there will be an announcement as to which of the constitutional amendments were ratified by the annual conferences. And finally, effective in 2027, upon approval by the Episcopal Church, the United Methodist Church will enter into full communion with the Episcopal Church. So they have to make their decision, as we already did, and so this will be effective in 2027 when we will be entering into full communion with this denomination. Again, I thank you all for this opportunity. I turn my time to Pam.
As we close our time of reporting, we will say one thing related to the removal of restrictive language or bans related to LGBTQ+ individuals. The major actions that happened at General Conference provide the ability for each church and each pastor to make their own decisions about how certain matters will be handled. In other words, each church and pastor, as we've heard before today, have autonomy in making such decisions. The delegation will be happy to be more specific about the major actions passed related to LGBTQ matters in our Q&A directly following the closure of this business meeting. As a delegation, we are grateful for your prayers, text messages, voicemails during our time at General Conference. The South Central Jurisdictional Conference is ahead of us, July 10th through 12th in Rogers, Arkansas. We covet your prayers during that time as well. Thank you for your continued support over this very extended delegation season of work and service, and please join us in room 149. Bishop, this concludes the General Conference delegation report.
Let's express our appreciation, not just for the report, but for their work. Thank you. General Conference is a pretty significant commitment for a delegate to participate in. A great deal of preparation that goes into it, meetings that go on for sometimes years before the General Conference itself, and then the extended period of time of General Conference meeting. So is there a question or comment? Microphone one.
Yes, I had a point of information, Bishop.
Okay.
My name is Laura Sollers, and I am a lay leader and lay delegate of the University in Las Cruces. As a point of information and related to the report we just heard, but not in direct response, please allow me 3 sentences.
All right.
The members of our congregation have heard you and other representatives of the annual conference say repeatedly that there will always be a pathway for churches who want out after December 31, 2023. They followed your advice and to wait and see what happens, and decided to stay UMC until the decisions of the General Conference were made. Now, given the many decisions made by the General Conference, I ask for the members of my church who have a different theological view, if you can tell us now, what is the pathway out?
Because of our time here and their meeting and dinner, I'm going to ask that the chair of our Board of Trustees tomorrow respond to your question, because they're the ones that establish the policy. There's always been some means by which churches can cease to be United Methodist. That generally has, and that was before 2553 was adopted in 2019. So there is a way to do that. The general understanding of most conferences that if they're going to proceed with that kind of policy, it's still going to meet the requirements of the 2553. But I'd rather have our Board of Trustees, or the ones that establish those policies, to share that with us tomorrow. Okay? Thank you. I think that brings us to the end of our time this afternoon in plenary. Rosalie, do you have a few announcements you'd like to share?
Thank you, Bishop. As we prepare to go to dinner, those of you who reserved a spot for Wednesday night's dinner, when you registered, have a green ticket in the back of your name tag. So if you forgot whether or not you did that, you'll know by looking at the ticket in your name tag. As we heard about connecting with children earlier this afternoon, we are going to invite you to connect with your inner child at this moment as we finish this transition into dinner. First of all, if you are not joining us for dinner in this space tonight, please take your things with you rather than leave them at the tables. We appreciate that. No saving the space. It might get ketchup or something on your book. So please take your things with you. Second of all, we have decided on to do a community art experiment project, and we really need your help, and this is where you get to connect with your inner child. We have a painting, as an artistic painting, and you don't need to be artistic to participate, but it's not house painting, right out these doors. And we would love all of you, whether you're staying or going for dinner, we would love all of you to take part in this project. So if you would, when we leave this place, now when we are through with this session, or whatever we're doing, when we're through with this session today, please go through these doors and you will be directed to a place where we're going to ask you to put paint on cloth and make your mark, and then we'll see what happens later. So please take an opportunity to do that while we transition into dinner. And don't forget that the delegation will be available to answer your questions in that room right back there. So thank you.
So friends, it's been a good day. It's been a full day. I've appreciated the spirit of the conversations and our deliberations as we come to enjoy dinner now or go on our ways. Now may the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the unity of the Holy Spirit be with each one of us this day and forevermore. Amen. We're adjourned for today.